Big news! Wayfair's tax refund sale is on now. Right now through March 2nd, you can score up to 70% off furniture, decor, appliances, rugs, and more. With fast and easy shipping straight to your door. Plus, amazing flash deals. Shop Wayfair's tax refund sale now to make the most of your refund with huge savings through March 2nd at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
So I feel like I have this weird thing, which is like, if I make a decision and it goes well, it means that I'm like, this sounds so weird. It means that I'm like well aligned in my life and I am good and I made a good decision. And like my roommate noticed it. Like I'll be like, yeah, I decided not to go to class today. Like that was right. I'm like so aligned with myself. But like if I have like a really bad meal, I'll be like really upset because I'm just like, I made the wrong decision. Like there's a lot of personal responsibility instead of understanding like, oh, shit happens. We live in a world that actually many things are out of our control or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I'm realizing like I have this view or image of my optimal self and optimal space and optimal life that I am constantly working towards. And every choice I make is getting closer to that. And I just learned that other people don't think that way. That's maybe like not a healthy way to think. Whereas my roommates on the opposite end is like, this is just a rat race in life where we have no control and like everything's out to get me. And I'm just like trying to find like little moments of happiness. Whereas I'm like, no, everything has to be like aligned and I have to like find my ideal like Black queer space, my ideal like Black queer friends, and like we're all gonna live in like this forest or something. My roommate's just like, and I don't know. Do you guys think like that? Do you guys like, do you feel like you think that way? Or are you just like, this is just life and this is just like a thing that I'm doing?
I had that from religious upbringing. So like because of like God, it was like, oh my gosh, everything is like God talking to me. Like I would like take a right instead of taking a left, but then I'm like, well, no, that was on purpose. Like there are no mistakes, you know, like, and it was like so exaggerated and honestly exhausting. I feel like I had to pull away from that. I feel like I had to like sober up after losing my religion and be like, oh, some things just happen. Some things are just random and there isn't one big cosmic good versus evil battle going on that I'm a soldier in, you know?
So interesting because I think in this situation, like I am my own God and I'm just like, oh, what I am doing. But I wonder, because I was raised religious and I wonder if that's from religion, but I don't know if it is. I think it's from being in spaces my whole life where I always had to like carve my own path, like basically just like shitty private schools where it's like, I am the master of my own destiny vibes, kind of.
Totally.
But I feel like I'm like literally like, I'm so obsessed with like utopia. And I'm also really obsessed with like constantly imagining the ideal. And like when like, for example, a breakup happens, my therapist notices that like I take on like a lot of responsibility where it's like, well, I missed the signs and like that wasn't me. I wasn't my most aligned self.
Totally.
For every person, there's like a million different ways to like love. And like, just because you didn't connect with one person, it wasn't like you're like, I think about it. I'm like, am I pseudo religious? What? It's so interesting.
Oh my God. But that's also, that makes me think of like control. Like maybe you earnestly think that you can control these things. And when it fails, it's not just like, oh, the apparatuses that are bigger than all of us that are keeping some of us down have done this. You're like, no, this is my personal failure. It's like, whoa, totally. You're hard on yourself.
I guess so. I guess it's also just like, yeah, no, I guess I am. Anyways. No, I think at a certain point, it's like, I think about like systems of power so much. And it's like, I like reflect on them too much. It feels like all consuming in a way. So I love the idea of like, I made myself like, and I feel like that's a really queer thing. Kind of relates to like what we're talking about today, which is like building things up. Like I am building myself up. I am in charge of my own destiny type thing. But I think the reality is just like, it's somewhere in the middle. Like it's somewhere in the middle between my roommate and I. It's like, oh yeah, I am in charge of these myself. But, and what prompted this was because I went to Mexico City and I just noticed how much easier it was to live. And like, I am so hard on myself about like food choices and like like not going to the grocery store. And it's like, the grocery store is 20 minutes away from me here. Whereas like, you know, in Mexico, it's literally like, in Mexico City, there would be like a taco stand like right out in front of my house, like with like delicious tacos, or there would be like a fruit stand 5 minutes away. Oh no, there are actually things out of my control in the US that make my life hell and like bad and like hard to live. And I was like, food desert. And I was like, oh, that's what prompted this, where I was just like, oh, like I actually like, I can't like build myself up out of like systemic, all of these like shitty things or whatever.
Oh, totally. That makes a lot of sense too. I think like having your own sense of like personal power is like super important, and being kind of like, I don't know, the person like pushing yourself to get things right like makes a lot of sense. I don't think it's like full like control freak or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, I know what I expect from myself.
What side of the spectrum do you feel like you are more on, like me or my roommate?
I don't know. I do feel sometimes like I zoom out. This is like how I'm a boomer. I zoom out too far and I go, okay, it's just slow incremental change. Like all of this stuff that feels really hard right now. Like I'm looking for like the small moments in it that are different than it was like a decade ago. And I'm like, okay, I can have like peace. But I'm also kind of like, no, like I'm accepting like too much that is unacceptable in that moment and being like, this is okay. It's like, no, maybe everything is not okay.
Yeah. No, it's so, yeah. When my roommate and I were talking about it, it's like, no, it's not complacency, but like, I think I do have friends who are just like, this is just how it is. And we have to like work through it and like figure our life out. And like, I think my roommate's a little bit more like that. And I'm like, every moment is a possibility for insurgency. Like, it's just like, I don't know. It's very interesting.
Totally.
So this was, it's so funny. I was skipping class when we were having this conversation. And like, my roommate and I, we've just known each other for so long that like these kind of conversations would just come up really casually, and it's like, this is the class, like this is the learning, you know what I mean? Like we are learning, we're like looking at each other like it's like two dumb bitches like nodding and saying like exactly, that's it. Like we just like are just like an echo chamber for each other. I love them so much.
Oh my god.
Am I even queer?
I think I want to take testosterone. I mean, I'm wearing men's underwear right now.
Is that a boy? Is that a girl?
Man, woman, cisgender, transgender, like we're born into language.
Butch, femme, T-girl,
Decolonized,
queer, trans, BIPOC,
neurodivergent,
Cisgender, heteropatriarchal, capitalist, girl boss.
Queer femme, lipstick every day.
T for T, like fag boy relationship. Butch.
boyish, like sprightly.
the softer, more fey.
Oh, but you're so feminine. You're so feminine.
Attraction to a hot T-boy.
I used sexuality to try to understand my gender.
What does it look like for non-binary people to quote unquote transition?
I was a boy. If I was looking down at the memory, I was a boy.
It's really difficult to look at gender identity head on.
Wait, I think I'm trans.
I'm Chris Vargas. I'm an artist. I also am a professor. And I do a project called the Museum of Trans Hirstory and Art. My pronouns are he, him. And I do a lot of line dancing.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
That's so fun.
Do you go to stud country?
I do. I work the door on Thursday.
I've bought a sweatshirt from you.
Oh my God. Hello. Nice to officially meet you.
So fun.
Oh my God, amazing.
Well, my name's David. I'm behind the times on the line dancing. I still haven't gone, which is very shameful. Given that I think like line dancing has kind of like brought Chris through this book journey. Like it's been your release.
Totally.
So I desperately need that. And we're going to do that soon. but I'll do a proper intro. So my name's David Evans Frantz. I'm a curator in Los Angeles, and a lot of my projects look at queer archives and histories that are often omitted or haven't received a lot of attention or recognition. And I worked with Chris previously on the first iteration of an exhibition series with MOTHA. So I am so lucky and honored to have been a collaborator on this project. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a cisgender gay man, and I'm delighted to be here.
Amazing.
We're happy to have you.
Yes.
I'm actually just so excited to ask about trans Hirstory.
Let's dive into it.
And 99 objects.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Can we kick it off? I'm not familiar with Hirstory. Would you want to talk about that?
Sure. Hirstory is a take on the feminist reclamation of history as herstory, but using the gender neutral here possessive pronoun that is now a little bit historical itself. It's less in popular usage, but thinking about a trans history, of course, I had to do a little wordplay.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
What was the impetus for the project? How did it come to be? And what was the process like for you?
Yeah, MOTHA itself, the Museum of Trans History and Art, I started it in 2013, so a full decade ago. And I began it as a poster, and the poster was just meant to advertise a museum that was never going to exist, but would plant the seed of imagination for people to fantasize, imagine, speculate about what such a place could contain, what art would be shown, what history might be exhibited. And I did so at a moment of it was pre or just at the start of this huge wave of trans visibility in all these institutions that have been historically exclude trans artists and history. So mass media, of course, lots of trans representation began 2013, thinking about Laverne Cox in Orange is the New Black. That felt really revolutionary and exciting at the time, even though Orange is the New Black is silly at best.
Ultimately they're all still in prison.
Right. Yeah. And it centers a fish out of water white woman's
totally
encounters with all these wacky whatever, but our arts institutions, academia, this was a moment that trans was all of a sudden included. And so in these, historically exclusionary institutions. And so I was what is this? The project was a way for me to investigate what's lost and what's gained and what's lost mostly in this process of assimilation, really. So when I designed this collage poster that was this that included over 250 trans and gender icons, I just started to imagine what I could do as this project. And MOTHA was born from there.
Wow. That poster actually hangs up in my gym.
Oh, at everybody?
At everybody,
cool.
Yeah. Above the scale next to a sign that says, "Don't take personally the number that you see on the scale. Be easy on yourself."
So funny.
It's a dreamy gym, yeah.
I forgot that you went to a fun queer gym, and I thought this was just in a Planet Fitness or something. And I was wow, LA is really with it. That's great.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Allies are everywhere. That's so fun to make a speculative museum. I mean, that's a really fun use of imagination.
Thanks. I'm not the first for sure, but I'm not even the first speculative trans museum.
Oh my God.
I know. Unbeknownst to me, there's an artist that we feature in the book, Trans History and 99 Objects, which is about to be released. We include an artist, Giuseppe Campusano, who is a Peruvian artist who did a project pre-MOTHA that has so many beautiful ties, but I just want to say I did not know about it when I started. And of course, I pay all the homage.
We all know you were biting Giuseppe.
Right.
Wow, that is so cool. I really liked how you kind of phrased, like, you wanted to explore what is lost, like, in the, like, trans assimilation to, like, mainstream. What are some of the things that you found that were, like, really surprising to you while doing this project?
Well, first, I think I was just concerned about how narratives have to be kind of simplified and palatable for a larger audience. And all the kind of nuances of trans culture and identity and experience would get like watered down. But I think over the last decade, it's been a little bit different than that. While I think conversations about trans and non-binary experiences and journeys can contain so many more nuances than I saw, that I feared would have to get like swept under the rug. Simultaneously, there's, obviously this giant political backlash to this moment of visibility. And so I guess my fear there too is still that like, but I don't know. I don't think I need to be that fearful. I think at least some people in like queer culture, like, can embrace all of the like nuances of the experience. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I wonder. No, it really does. It's making me think about, because the actors' strike is still going on. And I think that with streaming and kind of like this explosion of opportunities for different people to like create what we would now look at as mainstream, that's really interesting. I do feel like a lot more stories were able to be told that are maybe like a little less cookie cutter, because there are now like 50 shows premiering on a night instead of, like 13 or whatever like the original channels were.
Right. David, I saw you make a face.
When did I make a face?
Oh,
I never make faces. I'm stone cold. What are you talking about?
Me and my best friend, like, your lip twitched a little bit. Like, what's happening right now?
I did.
So funny. Yeah, do you have anything to add, David, or how would you answer that same question? Was there anything surprising that you found during this project?
Maybe I could talk about like how I got to here and like what I think like is so important and interesting about MOTHA. So I was previously a curator at the One Archive, which is an LGBT archive in Los Angeles. It bills itself as the largest LGBTQ archive in the world, which I think is very true. It is a huge collection of materials and a really important resource. I started there around 2010 as the archive was becoming a part of the University of Southern California. So a massive, bureaucratic, corporatized kind of university. And so this was an institution that dates back to the 1950s. It was first a magazine for the gay community and had existed through as an educational institute and became an archive. So it had deep community resonance, particularly within like a somewhat narrow community of older white men who kind of built the collection and were really instrumental in saving this collection and caring for it. This was a moment when community institution was becoming a part of this big university and was going to potentially feel the pressures of assimilation that Chris examined or already kind of talked about in relationship to like trans narratives going into the mainstream, queer narratives becoming part of a larger thing. And I kind of was able to create a space to do different artist projects with incredible people like Chris to provoke questions about what it means for a community-based archive to become a part of this larger institution. What are the kind of histories that remain obscured or lost or were never collected by the community, the archive, because of the biases within, the members at the time or community functions, what was lost, and what also fell through the cracks and is actually in the collection too, because there are these incredible rich histories of trans activism and community building that are a part of the collections of the One Archives. So they needed to be discovered. They were less recognized. They weren't really heralded as these linchpin histories that we all need to know about, like Queer History of Los Angeles. So Chris made this amazing video early on about Reed Erickson, who is a trans millionaire and an important funder of One in the 1960s and 70s and 80s, and was an eccentric individual in his own right in all amazing ways that I'm going to leave Chris to explain about. But that was my first introduction to Chris, and how he uses humor and speculation to really critically examine trans history and kind of bring out these potentials in history and archive that aren't necessarily there for people that just see a box or a stack of dusty papers. Those are some of the things that MOTHA, as this speculative, free roaming institution that will never be built but can live in our minds, can do, and it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Firstly, I'm like, maybe we need more trans millionaires. Obviously joking. But I was like, oh, I've never really heard that. Because you hear Black billionaires, like Jay-Z. It's like, oh, a trans billionaire. Like maybe that's what we need.
Yeah, I want to see Elliot Page on a yacht.
Yeah, exactly. I have two questions that come to mind, which is I'm so curious about what the research, what was kind of your process for researching for this book? What, you said, so many of these histories aren't preserved in an archive or something. So what were the methods and tools that you had to use for that? And I'm only priming you for the second question, which is our listeners might not have this book right in front of them. So I want to maybe hear about your favorite objects from either of you, but maybe that first question of what was that process like for you? And what was the research process like?
Well, the book came out of a series of 6 exhibitions, the first of which was at one, invited by David. That was the first time we really worked together. And then, so that was I thought I would be building towards 99 in this exhibition series. So the first one was at the One. The last one was at the Oakland Museum in this great show that our other collaborator, Christina Linden, curated called Queer California Untold Stories. Cool. And MOTHA had its own kind of mini installation, mini museum within the museum. But I thought when I started the exhibition series that it would build toward 99. And it didn't. Only because it was very limited. I mean, the exhibitions were limited to the opportunities that were given to me. And most of those were on the coasts, most on the West Coast. One iteration was at the New Museum in New York, but there's, nothing in the middle of the country or in the South or even extending beyond what are now the US borders. So we first looked at what was exhibited on the shows and saw these huge blind spots, but also thinking about the book as its own extension of the project and its own thing, what could be included that possibly what wasn't able to be exhibited or shown in the galleries. So the methods that we took were kind of expansive. So the book contains art and archival objects, but that doesn't mean archival objects that have any kind of material presence. So some things lost to history or maybe unrepresentable for various reasons, gatekeeping. In the case of the baptismal register of San Jose, the mission of San Jose, they wouldn't let us reproduce an image of their book, their register. Things like that are represented by drawings I did. There's other aspects of Hirstory that we contain that just didn't have any kind of anything that we could show. So we wanted to work with artists to creatively and expansively engage with an aspect of history that we thought would be great rather than showing something maybe not that interesting or maybe interesting in its own right, but it's an opportunity to engage with other artists. What else, David? Other methods? What am I missing?
Another thing that we did for the book were there were a number of objects or individuals that had objects that we wanted to include, but we didn't have documentation of yet. So one is the guitar of Beth Elliott, who was a folk singer who was set to perform at a very important lesbian feminist conference in Los Angeles in the 1970s, and a group of lesbian separatists protested her inclusion as a trans woman. But she's an incredible folk singer. So we commissioned an artist, Marcel Pardo-Ariza, to photograph a number of objects in the show, and sometimes with the individuals they're related to. So we had this incredible moving experience where Beth came to Marcel's studio, performed for us, and shot for the with their guitar that they've had since the 1970s. So those are really special moments, and also speak to I think all the affect, all the feeling that exists around some of the objects, particularly for some of the people. And then also all the collaboration with the individual and the artists and the writers and all these other folks that really made this book possible.
Wow.
Another person that Marcel photographed was Patricio Manuel, a trans boxer, one of the first trans boxers to compete professionally. And so he brought his original boxing gloves. So it was so wonderful to meet him and also spend some time as Marcel photographed him in his gloves.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. He's been on my list of people to try to interview for this because I'm just oh my gosh, what was that like? That ascension.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool. Do you guys want to talk briefly about when this book comes out or where people can find it?
So the book is on press right now. It's being co-published with an arts publisher called Hermer. So you can go to Hermer Publishers, and they have information about pre-ordering the book, as well as when it will be released. I think maybe we'll see books hitting, the stock in November, perhaps.
Wow.
So it's very eminent.
Wow, great. Okay, Chris, I'm wondering, can you please tell us about this billionaire video?
Oh, yeah.
What was this called? What is this?
It's a video called One for All that was commissioned for an event at the One when David was working there, and it was other artists engaging with the archive in various ways. And so I made a video about Reed Erickson, who was this millionaire philanthropist, one of the early funders of the One Institute, when it was a magazine, it's a homophile organization in Los Angeles in the 50s, right? 60s? When did it start?
It started in 1952. But right. Reed got involved in the 60s through the 80s.
And thanks, David. He was this amazing weirdo who had access to a lot of money. It was family money that, perpetuated the further wealth for him in his life. And he was an early funder of the One Archive or One Institute, but he was also really interested in all these other things. He funded trans social service organizations and medical service and studies, but also he funded more esoteric things like dolphin communication research and psychedelic mushrooms and sleep and full moon, sleep and full moon research. He was super eccentric and a real storied, dramatic individual, actually. But the video was my speculating about what if the One had was a conservative homophile organization, conservative in that it was interested in what's the word? Positive image issues or palatable delivering
respectability.
Yes, respectability politics. Sorry, I could not totally grab that in my head. So it was everybody, they encouraged people to show up at their protests in perfectly gendered clothing. So if you're a woman, dressing what a woman would wear at that time. Same with men. But Reed, I imagined in the video, would have steered the direction of the organization in much more interesting ways, possibly in ways that intersected with some of these psychedelic animal communication studies. And so that was my kind of re-scripting of a history that could have been, that never was, that maybe is now.
Yeah. Wow, that's so crazy. I think I know it's that study that they made that movie about with the dolphin.
Yeah, John Lilly was.
Take the exit. Turn right into the drive-thru.
Nope, I'm making dinner tonight.
You don't have time. Josh has practice.
Oh, that's right. I'll just get a salad.
And fries?
No, just the salad.
But salad cancels fries.
Salad only.
Fries.
Salad.
Fries.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on the road to successful weight loss.
Hey, can I get the
fries?
Salad. Sorry.
Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
The researcher that he studied.
Yeah, totally. Right? Okay, yeah. Can you tell us also, now that we're going through the archives of your videos, about Criminal Queers?
Oh, yeah. Criminal Queers I made with my collaborator, Eric Stanley. And that was a sequel to a film we made called Homotopia. And Homotopia was our response to the fervor around the right to marry movement. And it was our radical queer critique of the institution of marriage. We showed this film a lot and people would get kind of pissed off and be like, well, if you think that the right to marry is not a legitimate cause that we should be throwing all our millions of dollars at, what do you think is would be a legitimate way? Because the critique is that all of at that moment in the aughts, 2006, that the critique was that the right to marry was eclipsing all these very important, more pressing issues, and kind of covered over that we just queer and trans people need access to healthcare and housing and education and citizenship and all that. And so we're like, well, if not the right to marry, how about prison abolition? That would impact a great number of the most marginalized among us. And so we made the film Criminal Queers, which was our prison break story, using the same characters that appeared in the first film. One of them is in jail awaiting trial for blowing up a pile of wedding presents at a gay wedding. And so characters organize around a large prison break. We took almost 10 years to make it. It was super DIY. We barely had a script. We would have access to actors and we would just write them into the script, Angela Davis, who's not an actor, but who appears as herself, who explains just the basics of prison abolition to one of the characters in the film. But yeah, It's a 60-minute romp.
Yeah, I'm so bummed I missed seeing the whole thing. But maybe one day. Is it going to show up anywhere?
I know. We don't have it online, but we always share it with people who reach out to us.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Well, put me on the list.
Sure, yeah.
David, can you talk a little bit about your move since working at One to this project?
Sure, yeah. I think for me and Christina Linden, our co-curating for Chris, we all have different institutional jobs. Chris teaches at a university. Christina works at a museum in the Bay Area. I work for a museum here in LA. But I think we all have different relationships to thinking about and coming to our deep interest in creating really critical and inventive and new queer histories, and thinking critically about what it means to function within institutions, primarily of learning or academia, but also public-facing institutions, and want to see more fuller and richer queer narratives at the forefront, and how to kind of navigate that within these structures. These structures are inherently imperfect, if not also, exploitative or terrible, or just really troubling or problematic, depending on where you are and what your job is and what kind of institution you're working in. Culture institutions are no different. So that's where I think my deep, deep love for Chris's project is, it's about imagining and speculating and manifesting a more rigorous, inclusive, fun, critical, complicated Hirstory, but then also finding ways to navigate through the present and the conditions that we have to function within. So I think Chris's MOTHA is the best way to have your cake and eat it too, in some regards.
Totally.
Yeah.
As someone
Yeah.
who's like,
totally.
I'm like a PhD student, and it's like, you know, it it does seem like the best of both worlds to kind of be able to choose how you want to engage with these institutions rather than kind of having to be like within them and figuring all that fun stuff out. So
Yeah.
Yes, this project attracts a lot of disgruntled academics and
Really?
cultural workers because, yeah, I mean, you know, well, disillusioned, thinking we go into these paths thinking that we can do all this great creative work, and you know, you run up against all these limits of the institution.
totally. And you can just do it. You can just do it outside of it, which is what you did. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the project exists within institutions. Like, you know, I'm invited to project to museums and some galleries, like the one, and it's also a way to extend opportunities to other artists, trans artists and writers. And so it was a way to kind of leverage the opportunities that I was getting for this project that like appeared at like kind of a perfect time in the world. Because institutions are all of a sudden like, we need a trans project. Right. We need a trans in our museum. And so, yeah, so rather than like fully accept that as like mission accomplished or like the like end goal being included, like thinking critically about what that inclusion means.
Yeah, totally. It seems like you got to really take your like superpower of expertise of operating within these worlds and then have like a fun playground to just like really do the work that you've been wanting to do. That's so cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, was it hard to pare it down to 99 items, or it kind of sounded like you were looking for more than what you had originally? But yeah, you're shaking your head. It was hard to pare it down.
Chris, you should explain why the 99 too, and then how we got there. Yeah.
Yes, 99. So the book itself, Trans Hirstory and 99 Objects, is a take on the Smithsonian's History of America in 101 Objects, which is like a one-upsman gesture on the British Museum's History of the World in 100 Objects. A lot of what MOTHA does is like mimicking what other institutions do. And so engaging with an imaginary collection like that doesn't exist. I wanted to create this book, and 99 signals like an incompleteness. Knowing that like doing this project is important, doing this work and this kind of pulling out of histories is very important, but also it's a fraught project within itself. It'll never be complete. And also to create a cohesive trans narrative is counter to the like expansive fluidness of this history in general, and kind of pointing to the stakes that one always has in history, looking from the present back. There's always these biases and limits to that. So the 99 signals all of that.
Can you give us like one or two more objects? I just want to like, you know, really paint out a picture for like listeners that like maybe one or two objects that you like really like or that come to mind for you.
Just to talk about how it's organized, the book, we have 9 different sections. And so that was a kind of difficult feat in organizing objects in different sections, whereas they could have been in many different sections of the book. But it starts with refusal, then transformation, hyper-visible, sensation, deities, discovery, restage, traces, and spaces are the 9 different sections.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and those, like, each of those sections kind of weaves together different artist projects, historical objects, like a hat or even a document or a magazine. And then, as kind of Chris already alluded to before, like some of these things are drawings because the object no longer exists, or we didn't, in at least one case, get the rights to reproduce it. So it really is like a weave of all these different types of materials. And one thing I think it's also really important about the 99 too is to recognize like not all of the included participants would necessarily identify as trans or non-binary or gender non-conforming. One example, and Chris and Christina kind of experienced this when they organized a show. The show in Oakland is they included these blazers that belonged to Sylvester, who of course was like an amazing singer and entertainer and, gender transgressor, but did not identify as trans or as a drag queen either. But, because of everything that kind of the ways in which Sylvester's performance and music pushed against gender binaries, it made sense for the project, but that also was not without controversy because Chris and Christina recounted this story where they overheard, a friend or someone who knew Sylvester speaking out loud in the galleries, like, well, why is Sylvester here? They weren't a trans person. So it's really about like the MOTHA also is like meant to also capture this broad spectrum of gender transgression. And especially also because, terms that we use today or people identify with today, like didn't exist in the past. And we can't also impose them onto the past, but we can imagine, kinship and connection.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah. Are there a couple more objects that you would love to highlight in this, or?
One object I think is really beautiful is Tuesday Smiley's banner that recreates this photograph of Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson and other trans activists from STAR, which was a street Transvestites Action Revolution, an organization in 1970s New York. So Tuesday, who's a textile artist, recreates the banner as if it like appears in the image, like showing its shadows through like the shadow across the banner with like different sequins and stuff. So it's like this really textural, evocative kind of reimagining of a history of this one iconic image that only kind of exists to represent that moment and their action.
We also an object that is included, which is like not quite an object, so we approach that term loosely, is the Brooklyn Liberation March that took place in Brooklyn in June 2020. Just that as like a really important moment, a huge response to the killing of George Floyd, and in like alignment with Black Lives Matter movement, and that as as an object, but not quite an object, as a really important piece of trans history. Each object is paired with a writer or a text that connects. And so pairing that object, the Brooklyn Liberation March, is a text by Andrea Jenkins, a Black trans woman in Minneapolis, who reflects on this moment as the city council woman of the district that included the area where George Floyd was murdered and saw a lot of huge protests and moments of uprising. So her reflecting on kind of that moment in Brooklyn from her place in Minneapolis.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool, because then you kind of get to like situate these objects within like certain contexts. That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah,
it was fun and difficult trying to find writers and pair them perfectly with the objects in the book.
Right.
Yeah, totally. 99.
Yeah, it was a lot of wrangling.
A lot.
Well, it also makes me think of like, like in an actual, well, no, I don't want to say actual, in a physical museum, because that's the point, this museum is actual. But, there's like the text or whatever, like the exhibition text, like on the side of it, like that contextualizes it. But I find that it's like, often so fraught. It's like, who's our audience? Who is this for? Why are we writing it? And so I can imagine in a similar way, it's like, well, who's going to speak on these objects? Like, who can even say anything about these things? You know what I mean? So I can imagine that could be difficult, but still so cool.
I mean, that was the challenge with the Oakland Museum show that MOTHA had the installation in, which was like the conventions for the wall text were geared towards school-aged children, which is wonderful, but like that's such a tight parameter,
Totally.
So really got
It's so tough because I'm from Oakland, so it's like Oakland Museum is like my museum. Like I love it. It's so cool. But a couple years ago, I did this like speculative kind of like podcast about this Black curator in the Bay Area in the 60s and 70s. Her name's E.J. Montgomery. She's still alive, but there's like just a letter where like she is just like so mad with like the Oakland Museum because she's like, y'all fucking suck. Like you exclude Black artists, like all this stuff. Because I think she was like fired or something. I can't quite remember the details, but you know, it's like, I'm like, oh, it's such a cool progressive museum, yada yada yada. You know, like whatever that means. Like I love the Oakland Museum, and then still, like, you know, the point of the podcast was like these institutions have been giving, you know, marginalized people like problems for like now like generations and decades and all of this stuff. So it's like, you know, MOTHA is such an amazing experiment. The question for the podcast was, oh my God, what was it? Like, what are your most ideal Black art spaces outside of museums? And so I feel like similarly, like MOTHA is like such a cool experiment of like what our ideal museum space look like. And maybe it's something that doesn't have walls, you know, because when those walls go up, so does the exclusion. That's what it seems like the vibe is, you know? So. Yeah.
Oh, totally. I love how it's existing kind of like, yeah, in thought, in imagination, in fantasy. Do you see a physical show for it, or like a lecture series, or do you see something like that coming in the future for this like 99 Objects book?
Well, we're going to do a bunch of book launches upcoming, probably because the book itself is coming out around holiday season, which is a terrible time to have events. A lot of them will take place early next year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So an event in LA, up in the Bay, one in the Bay Area, one in New York.
Anyone listening who would like to host events?
Yeah.
We're ready.
For sure.
Wait, that's perfect. I'm sure.
Yeah. I have one last question that maybe will like bring in some, like, you know, we're talking about in some ways like queer objects, and Chris, I'm thinking about your practice of like video work. Is there like a queer or trans like object that like, and I'm thinking about your work specifically, Chris, and something that is like speculative, like you really have to not suspend disbelief, but really like, you know, hope that something that you don't see yet is possible, right? And I guess I wonder if there's like an object or a piece of media that like, you know, gives you that feeling that something is possible, or that like maybe unlocked something for you when you were younger.
Oh my God, that's such a big question.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just am like, for me, it's like Cheetah Girls or something. Like, is there like a movie or something that was just like, wow, this is really giving me some feelings about what the world could be?
Well, okay, this is like really dystopian and trashy.
Perfect. Perfect.
When I was growing up, I went to video stores, and that was like one of my ways to access culture. And I ran across a John Waters movie called Desperate Living. And Desperate Living is so trashy. But there existed this world that was parallel to like the regular world called Mortville, where people have to go because they're like running from the law and have to live outside society. And it's like run by a terrible queen who abuses her power, but like it was like this queer world that I saw. And my first image of transmasculine person whose gender I was like I really identified with, and they go and get a quote unquote sex change from like the John Hopkins gender clinic in like, it was this time like where there's like politics like roped into the movie, where this was like a time where those services were first available or more widely available. And yeah, Mole McHenry was this like, and Mortville was this like queer dystopian fantasy that I wanted. Like the bars were super fun and trashy and like raucous and also terrible, but also just the practice of John Waters filmmaking at that time was really inspiring to me. And that like you can make something out of nothing with all your friends, larger community, and that like was forever inspiring to me, and still, yeah, obviously still is inspiring to me.
Oh, totally. That's definitely what I thought of first with like seeing your video work and like Harry Dodge or this kind of like Bay Area, like I'm making this like with my friends. Wow, that's really cool.
I looked up the poster and it says like a true piece of trash art. Just like,
it's great.
It. I've never seen it before. That's so, I'm excited to watch it.
I mean, it's terrible. I mean, it's not terrible, but like, it's like, it would
It's
not
incredible
be made.
and should be illegal.
Yeah. Like, it's just like, there's no attempt at like positive representation. Like, literally, like the person who gets a sex change gets a dick, and then the partner doesn't like it and they cut it off and throw it out the window and a dog eats it. Like, but like the humor in that was, I identified with so.
Yeah, totally.
So how long has the book specifically been like in, I guess, production? Maybe it's a good question.
How long have you been working on this, David?
I mean, it feels like a good 3 years now, right?
Wow.
You've been working on it longer because you and Christina were working on it before I joined.
Yeah.
But it was really an early pandemic thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't think it really coalesced as like us three as a functional working group till like the summer 2021.
Wow.
I don't know. 2 to 3 years. And it's been quite a road. It's a lot of work.
I'm sure.
Wow. And the idea for the book is like, has been embedded with MOTHA kind of since the early days, right, Chris? Like,
yeah.
So it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And was it last month was the 10-year anniversary of MOTHA?
Yeah, well, June 2023 was MOTHA's 10th anniversary, and I made a new 10th anniversary poster
awesome.
that will be out in the world soon. There it is.
Ah, cool.
All new figures, many, many more. But yeah, it takes a similar humorous, expansive approach to trans figures and history. Hirstory.
Wow, cool. Awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's so exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about this project. So thank you so much for giving us these little like previews and behind the scenes explanations.
Thanks for having us. This is so nice.
Yeah. David, do you have anything you want to plug? Ways to reach you or anything like that?
I'm also working on a show that opens at the Vincent Price Art Museum on October 21st. And it's a retrospective of a queer Chicano artist named Teddy Sandoval. And it's a co-curator with a scholar I've worked with before, Ciandine Chavoya. This show is called Teddy Sandoval and the Butch Gardens School of Art. And it has a lot of resonance in some ways with MOTHA in that Teddy created a fictitious imagined school of gay artists in the 1970s and distributed his own artwork as the Butch Gardens School of Art, even though it was, just him. So clearly there's some like deep rooted needs that I have about like speculative imagined queer futures in the past.
Yeah.
So that's another one that I hope people can check out.
Amazing.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you so much to both of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel like Chris is such a good model for this like practice of imagining and like speculating about something that doesn't exist yet and like bringing it into fruition like through experimentation and like I'm just so inspired by the fact that he built this thing on his own without kind of worrying about like institution and things like that. It's like so inspiring.
Yes. Yeah, I think one of the strengths that I love about him is he's so playful. Mm-hmm. Like he's like a lot of his video work is really funny, and making this kind of like speculative museum, I'm just like, to me, it kind of feels like when Twitter like accidentally gave a bunch of people who weren't the company's like check marks and people were like pretending to be craft, or you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like there's kind of like this like online jokester ethos in being like, no, I'm just gonna make a thing and like put all of this like professional like formatting around it and make it look real, but like without the like slapstick like jokey side of it. It's like, no, this literally should exist and I'm gonna make it.
And because of that, it literally does. Like, it is real and it does exist, just because it's not like a physical institution. Like, it's,
totally.
It's so cool. I feel like I feel kind of like jealous of him because like I'm someone who's like been stuck in like, not stuck. Okay. I think.
Yeah. Let's get into this because I was going to say, what's your relationship to institutions?
Well, I was going to say stuck, but then I think it's also like a very real privilege to be the kind of like spaces that I've been in. But essentially, like I've been in like predominantly like white institutions, like since I was literally 5 years old. And like, right now I'm like a PhD student at Schnell University. And so because of that, I feel like I'm always just like trying to like fight my way out of these spaces. Like that's my identity as someone who like what my friends all know me as someone who like hates it here. I like never go to class. I like don't care. Like that's kind of my identity, like kind of like a slackerish identity where I'm just like, I hate this place. I'm not going to become of it kind of. And I'm basically just always dreaming of like my ideal space outside these institutions. So like a couple years ago, like I did a podcast with like SF MoMA, like basically fantasizing about like ideal Black artistic spaces outside of museums. But what's so ironic about that is that it's an anti-museum podcast, like at a museum. And so like I have been thinking
paid
about paid for no, like I got paid by SF MoMA to like make this thing that's like bringing the very institution into question, which is like, it has got me thinking like, you know, who would I be without these institutions? Like, would I actually be okay without this institutional validation? Like, I think it's very easy to sit here and be like, oh, I hate it. It's horrible. But like, actually, like, who am I without these spaces? And like, could I live and be validated and secure in my work without like, you know, getting grants or getting things like that, you know?
Yeah. Cold hard cash. The card hold cash.
Like the card hold cash.
is not nothing. And it's so interesting that like, yeah, these institutions have so much money and kind of can make or break. It's really cool that they like spent that money on a museum critical podcast.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, yeah, I think that that's very cool. And I think that this book was also like Chris was able to like get institutional backing for it, right?
Totally. I think it was a creative capital like fund award project, which is like amazing and sick. And it's like, you know, this stuff is like funding people's like ability to live. And then I'm also like, oh, what would it look like to like make things outside of this place? Like, I don't know, outside of these spaces. Like it feels so hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, is speculative institution making the answer? It's like, it has all the positives of an institution, but it doesn't have any employees and it doesn't have any, like, donors. So it's like kind of the ideal institution.
You can't exploit employees if you don't have them. So
yeah, if you don't actually exist.
If they don't exist, you can't exploit them. Like, maybe that's the move, you know? Allie, do you feel like you have this relationship with like institutional validation and like comedy and stuff like that? But I feel like your stuff is so much more DIY that it's like not quite as, I don't know. Tell me about it.
Totally. Yeah, I would say so too. I think a lot of the stuff that I found myself in is a little bit more like outside of institutions, although yeah, there's still kind of like a hierarchy and it does feel really good when an institution reaches out to you and is like, you know, we had over 500 applicants and we chose, you know, like there is like something like evil about getting like the validation of like institutional approval. So absolutely. I think, yeah, that's definitely not something I've like worked out of my own psyche. I'm like, yes, Amazon.com picked me.
Totally. Like, why wouldn't you feel that way? Like, it makes sense, you know? Gender Spiral is an original podcast from Audiation. This episode was mixed by Matt Noble, and music is composed by Chanel Critchlow, with art by Joey Hahn and graphics by Honey Hodges. The show is executive produced by Ireland Meacham, myself, Babette Thomas, and my co-host, Allie Beardsley, and Sandy Smullins, with additional story editing by me.
Thank you to our guests, Chris Vargas and David Frantz. Their book, Trans Hirstory and 99 Objects, comes out later this fall. You'll find a link to pre-order it in the show notes. If you like the show, please head over to patreon.com/genderspiralpodcast to support us.
You can also check us out at genderspiralpod.com, where you'll find the link to leave us a voicemail to ask us questions, tell us who you want to hear from, and what you want to hear about on the show.
And follow us on Instagram. It's at genderspiral. We have a couple more episodes left this season, so subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to stay tuned. And tune in next week to Gender Spiral,
where you never have to spiral alone. Exactly. Yes.
That was Clem solo.
Aww.
Audiation.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's LIBSYN, ads.com today,